Welcome to the Soil Summit, day 2 of Biodiversity, Cultivating Life, and our conversation with Ernest Ghosh about working and learning from, working with and learning from the intelligence of nature. And some of you may know of Ernest from the word syntropic farming, and some of you might be what? It might be a brand new word, syntropic farming. And Ernest has his own journey about that and how that came to be. And what's really has when we invited him to be a part of the Soil Summit, one of the things that came up was his passion for really bringing presence to the intelligence of nature. And so that's what this conversation is mostly going to be about, is working with the intelligence of nature and learning from some of Ernest's insights and his experiences. And so we invite you to pop your questions in to the chat, and we'll answer them throughout the session as best we can, and make sure and work hard at getting to all of them at the end. I was going to say, it's completely escaped me. Be sure throughout the session, when something lands for you, make a note of it for yourself, of how you might implement it or use it or bring more curiosity into your farming journey or into your gardening journey or into your next steps of where you are and where you're headed. And listen with your eyes and your ears and your heart and all your senses to the conversation that unfolds, and may it be everything that you need and want it to be. And Ernest, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for creating and carving out the space, and thank you for the incredible work that you've been doing over the last number of decades in agroforestry and the all the land stewards that you have championed, and I would say lives and souls that you've woken up to the possibility of what's possible when we work with nature. So I deeply appreciate your work. Thank you.
Thank you to have me invited and sharing with marvelous group.
When you think about the intelligence of nature, Ernest, what do you think of? What's on your heart?
Well, I always say to people that we are part of a macroorganism, and if we really accept this changes all our relations to nature. We are no longer more the intelligent ones. They are not the important ones. We are not commander-in-chief. We are not owner. So it changes the whole context. That's to say, our what we learned at school and what we learned in religion, in philosophy. We always look, let's say, in all old civilization, a little bit less Taoism in China, but the other ones have man or see man as a top of the pop. We are not the top of the pop. We are part of a macroorganism, and so when we do that, and not only believing in words, but really living it, this opens so many possibilities for joy, then to produce more, to have no quarrel. Let's say we live in a paradise. Every day working in my plantation, it's a paradise. I cannot say a different thing. It's all beautiful. And my question always, if I see, and this is not uncommon, nearly every day I see a new species of insects, certain plants which I never observed before in their context, or the first time that I'm that I'm seeing it, that the same, that it comes to my conscience. And so first question is always, what are you doing of marvelous? That is, what are you doing of good? Never could I, there is nothing which I could imagine after more than 50 years doing this, that is working in this sense, to see any species on this planet who I could say that it is it's a bad guy. It's something. Yeah, it's a pest, or it's it's something negative. All have their function, and all function in the say. That's to say, the concept for appearing is, or for having appeared, is for all the same. This is bringing forward wide life on this planet. That's to increase life. And there is none of the species which would do a different thing. Then we have no enemies. This is very, very important. Do not think that, let's say, a wolf could be an enemy of a deer. If you look both of them together, they interact, and the wolf is a herd keeper of the deer. That's to say, deer does not only accept him, he loves him, without any doubt. I learned this first with a Hottentots, with the pygmies in Namibia, some 50, 60, now 60 years ago. I worked in Namibia, and it was those pygmies which only last year in Angola, neighboring country, as there are pygmies too, they came to conclusion that they are human beings too. That's to say, up to last year, by law, you could kill them, let's just chase them and hunt them, in the same way as people believe that they have a right to hunt in the forest. And these beliefs we have upon all our concepts are constructed. This is results in the disasters we are producing all over the world. As long as the number of human beings was small, nature had time, capacity to recover the damages man caused. But then when the number of individuals is becoming bigger, then we see that phenomenon we have all over the world, hundreds, perhaps thousands of civilizations, which occurred first locally and removing forest during the last 10,000 years, before I believe that they didn't do it. Removing forests. First of all, stealing in the forest. We could say gathering, but they are not gathering. If I come to gather in your house garden, then I'm a thief. That's to say, it's not. There is no ethics to do that. I can gather. That's to say, I can do something like this, but then I should do it in the same way as our sisters and brothers in all ecosystems do too. They also collect fruits, and but then they collect fruits, and behind, or that's to say, intrinsically connected with the act of collecting fruits is another thing. They select for the best ones, and then second, and that's the most important thing, they go moved by inner pleasure to plant it. And man, when he when he is proud to make organic farming, he puts the seeds of the species he eats, the fruits, on a compost, making compost out of it instead of planting. And when we harvest or find the fruit in the forest, instead of planting that fruit, we eat the fruit. Might be that we eat it because we know it, and then throw the seed away. That's to say, they don't plant them. And so other seeds too, dozen important of trees, which, the fruits of which we don't eat. But we could, if we would change our way of looking at nature, we could ask, and this is what I am doing, meeting or seeing a species. First question, when I do not know it, what's your positive interaction? What's you came for to do which marvelous things? And then second, how can I interact with you in order to become beneficial for you? This is very, very important. And this becoming turning to be beneficial for all submitted, influenced and present one. This, in my point of view, this causes a lot of joy for all presence, all submitted, and that's to say for the whole macroorganism. And so in this case, the macroorganism is doing better. And this makes that, as I said to you, we live in a paradise, and we can create this paradise from the moment onward that we understand this peculiarity or this way of functioning of this macroorganism, and stepping down from the pedestal, we elevated of the intelligent ones, of the important ones.
That makes so much sense. Imagine if we stepped into being with instead of being above.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really powerful, Ernest. Where are you joining us from? I think we heard birds. I think we hear your birds in the background. Tell us where you are.
Well, I'm in a paradise. That's his
You
paradise.
are.
This paradise is in center, let's say halfway from north to south to Brazil. It's in Bahia. It's more or less in the middle, but we are living on the eastern side, I'd say about 40-kilometer direct line to the coast.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so-called cocoa region. It was cocoa region. Nowadays, it's cocoa production is very, very few only.
And tell us about the like how you landed where you are today. So what was it that you first noticed that we needed to do differently when it came to nature and connecting with nature?
It was my work I did in the beginning, mid-70s, of plant improvement in Zurich. And this work in plant improvement, I did it with a lot of enthusiasm. But after a certain time, I came to conclusion that perhaps we could do a different work in a different way, because there are aspects in plant improvement which for me makes sense. If I look at a bird or at any other frugivorous animal which eats fruits, it does also makes also plant improvement, because there is a dialectic interaction between the frugivorous, the disperser, and the tree. And so the disperser, he looks for, let's say, he chooses for fruits which are tasty for him and beautiful. Okay, this makes sense. And also we do it since, I suppose it might be 30,000 years yet that we do it sure. I'm sure that they did it, because wheat, for example, it had been, all indicates it was a breed of created in southern Turkey about 15,000 years ago, and they made a triploid. We are not yet no more able to make a triploid. That's to say, it seems that they had more knowledge in genetics than we have nowadays. And so there are other, let's say, if you study cultivated plants, there was a lot of work of our farmers in terms of improving it. And if you look at the corn, for example, which is closer to you, or to you in Americas, the indigenous people in America, from southern Canada to Argentina, they cultivated corn, and corn, clearly it comes from, let's say, the grasses which contributes as the gene pool for corn is sea and teosinte, the two grasses which are common still between Mexico and Bolivia. And so they selected, or they made hybrids out of those. They can occur naturally too, but they were very tiny. Let's say it makes not sense it's not very interesting for us to eat. So that they made, apparently, now this we know from archaeology in Mexico, they made selections, and when European came to Americas, and this is very important, they had corn much more productive than we have nowadays. And we only look, and they did not only look or study productivity, they had a profound knowledge in terms of compositions of proteins and other parts of that corn, and they had a clear definition. Let's say they had a clear definition for which type of beans has to be eaten in which proportion to corn. And then they had a knowledge to plant them together. And when I began, now I come back to my work in plant improvement. And so first I made tests in terms of crop rotation, then consortiums of plants, and for this I was I was enthusiastic about what I saw in a visit in Brazil in 76, seeing that they plant corn and beans together. For you, it's something clear, or let's say normal. It was normal in Americas, and for Americans, it's closer than it has to. It should be planted together, but we don't use it more. But if you do it, even if you plant, and this is very interesting, even if you plant corn in monoculture, let's say 70 to 90,000 plants per hectare, or per meter square, about 7 to 9 plants. And if you then look for beans which combine with that corn, let's say beans more, they do better, and it's easier to do it. You look for climbing beans. And the trick is to have to figure out beans which are adapted for the place where you live and for the soil, and which combines with a variety of corn you plant. Let's say it should not begin to, how it's called, to make it binds, to close the flower of not the male flower but female, the cup of the new cup of the corn before corn flowered. And so you have to combine varieties of beans which grow a little bit slow in the beginning, and then at the moment of flowering they have a right to, and they should do it, to come up to the top, and then they will dance. Let's say they make a dance together with corn, and result is that you harvest 30% more corn, 30% higher, and more or less 45 to 50% more organic matter, because it's a thicker stem, stronger leaves, and it's all it's simply strong. And additionally, you will have earthworms in that cornfield, which you cannot imagine you could have in a cornfield. 2-3 centimeter, cover of 2 to 3 centimeter. If there are still earthworms in a place and you're doing organic farming, so you probably have earthworms in the soil. So those earthworms, they will proliferate and they give about 2 to 3 centimeters of feces upon the soil. That's to say, the soil afterwards seems to me you can look into the soil. And then I broadcast before the harvest of the corn and beans. I broadcasted wheat. You do it in autumn time. It's time to plant wheat, and then harvesting the corn and beans. It gave in my case in northeastern Switzerland about 10 to 12,000 kilo at that time. Let's just say in the 70s, not yet so productive corn varieties as nowadays. 10 to 12,000 kilo corn and about 2,500 to 3,000 kilo of beans. And then you have the whole organic matter. Technically, there is no problem. Let's just say you can construct a machine to harvest both of them. There's absolutely no problem. And similar, then also I figured out we can plant, or we should plant, in fact, wheat together with leguminous plants. I tested several ones. One was peas, harvesting the same amount of corn, of wheat, as in wheat monoculture, a little bit less, a little bit less in monoculture than in the consortium of peas. And then I had still the peas, and the soil once again it turned to be much better. Let's say enriched. And so this was one of the first point. Let's say first step I made in. I have to say that time yet I did organic farming. Let's say it was for me, it was not strange to not use toxic chemicals. On the contrary, I had, as a geneticist, you receive in that institution, so worldwide it's the case, you receive the soil prepared for the crop you tend to plant, or you plan to plant. And I had to insist that no, I would not like to have this. No, but you are planting now this and this, and so you need that and that. And then herbicides, they used at that time yet in the 70s herbicides to clean. I had a conflict with this because how can we kill those plants? They appear. This was clear for me. They appeared because I didn't use that niche of the ecosystem, and if I don't use it, so somebody comes in order to do it. And if I would like that it doesn't happen, so I could make, as I said in this case now of corn and beans, instead of using glyphosate to clean a cornfield, I can plant beans. Together, I harvest more.
So I'm curious, Ernst, with everything you've learned, what advice do you have for farmers who are farming today, or gardeners who are gardening today? What would you say to them?
Well, we have to change our glasses, and this is change our beliefs. That's to say, we have to get rid of our absurd idea that all inter and intraspecific relations between the different species and the different individuals is based on competition. In fact, they are based unilaterally on unconditional love and cooperation. you can have something which can give you an idea that it is competition. That is to say, if I plant, for example, wheat, and now I commit the error and plant still together in the density of monoculture, a barley, then I have a problem. That's to say, but this is not competition. This, I would say, it's overposition. And if you have a pine tree, and then you still have your fir, or you have other trees, and plant now all of that both once again in monoculture, you can have certain problems, because if you plant those fir tree in a density of monoculture, and then the pine trees too, the pine trees will be oppressed a little bit, but this is not, they don't grow as fast as those fir. But this is not competition once again, it's overposition. And so if you are a gardener and plant now radish, and in monoculture, in density of monoculture, and then plant at the same time still lettuce also in a density of monoculture, then it's, they will have a problem. That's once again not competition, it's overposition. I can plant radish and lettuce together, but then I have to consider that lettuce, it takes a little bit more time to grow, and it uses more space than our radish. Let's say this tiny one, radius, this red ones or white ones, tiny, which in 4 or 5 weeks are at the point. We can plant both together. I only have to consider in a position, let's say I plant lettuce, for example, 40 to 40 or 30 to 30, according to the variety and to type of soil place where I produce. And radish I can plant, let's say 3 by 15 or 3 centimeter by 20 centimeter or 4 centimeter by 20. And so I have to maintain free a space for one of those lettuces to grow on the place of a radish. Better if I let 2 or 3 radishes without a planting and the lettuce. And that lettuce, then it will be raised by the radish. And when I harvest the radish, let's say during growing, radish will realize the job of weeding. Let's say it's my weeding. In fact, it transforms it in harvest. And so I still could plant, let's say, a cabbage together. Cabbage, it takes definitely more time. And you plant it 50 by 50 or 60 by 60. Okay, once again, in that arrangement you make, you will now let free part of the space, places used for radish. You let, or for lettuce, you let space free for cabbage. And cabbage and lettuce, either you will not plant them at the same position, because then I will have the cabbage will have a problem, because lettuce will grow faster, and so I will not have a positive result. No, look at the space, so avoid to make overposition. And then we have also another belief. We learn it in science. This is plants which have a quarrel one with the other. I cannot say this. It's always function. Allelopathy. It's always function. Let's say it's function. If I have, for example, well, here I'm living in the tropics, and so it's hated. The eucalyptus. Eucalyptus is one of the marvelous plants I know in my life. In terms of capacity, it has to interact with all other plants. But if you plant now those eucalyptus, which most of them are emergent trees, and they have been, it was a selecting, let's say selection, it was a selection made, but can say made as a result of human interaction of putting fire of the Aborigines in Australia. And so they had to, eucalyptus, it was able to cope with that fire, to grow fast. And if you put fire regularly or frequently on a place, you will have bare soil. Bare soil will compact and no more, less precipitation, and each time more it's drier. And then Australia, in a place where it's most common, additionally, since the beginning of this warmer period, 12,000 years, it became a dry place. This, as I said to you, once caused by fire, and another also latitude of the place and the position, its position on the continent, southern hemisphere, and on the western part of the continent. And so it's dry. It's the same thing in America. Yeah? The western part is drier than the eastern part because the main rain comes from the western part. But this it is no problem. That nature has its way to cope with dryness and rain. I say to people, rain is more or less, we have to consider it as a premium for a good work, and it's not the precondition for life and for growth, because life and growth you see in places with, as I get now in Saudi Arabia, 4 millimeters of precipitation in the subtropics, not 40 millimeters or 4 inches or 40 inches, no, 4 millimeters per year. And the biggest problem they have in that place is flooding. But there are plants, they grow in these places. I was astonished and I was enthusiastic to see that in the middle of the so-called desert. In fact, it would not be a desert if man would not insist every year, when there is a little bit of that 4 millimeters rain, after 2 weeks, no, after 2 days it's all green, and after 3 weeks it's 20, 30, 40 centimeters high. 4 millimeters of precipitation. And then they have their herds of camels, of goats and sheep to eat that. And then it turns into desert. And they hate all spiky plants. Let's say they kill them in order to, as I say, believe that they are competition for the plants of those grasses and herbs their sheep, camels, and goats will eat. In fact, I was in Namibia, and in that region, about 70 kilometers northeast of Windhoek, on that place it rains once a year, when it rains. It's not 4 millimeters, it's per medium of 150 to 200 millimeters. But there are years, every 2-3 years it doesn't rain at all. And when it rains, it's only January. And I was astonished that the huge number and density of big animals, a lot of animals. And the herds of the farmer where I worked, he had more or less 30,000 hectares, and the herdkeepers were pygmies. They looked for those animals, and in between the herds of our cattle, there were a lot of antelopes, lions and other predators, and then also elephants and all those animals, African animals of the savannas and the steppes, and they lived together, and it was green. And this was for me astonishing, that it's always green. Let's say green. Green in terms, they have a lot of euphorbiaceae. In Americas we have cactaceae, they have a lot of euphorbiaceae, and which visible at that time and dominant in some way. There were spiky bush trees every 5, 6, 10 meters, and they had spikes of more or less 25 centimeters. 25 centimeters, all spiked outside, in order to avoid that animals eat that bush tree. Evergreen. And then there was another plant which impressed me, called marama bean. It was a wine, and the pygmies drink the water of the Chilopodium of the root. It's a tuber root in the soil, and it can store up to 100 liter water in it, and daytime it's invisible. It takes the mimicry, it takes the color of the soil, so it's invisible. At nighttime it opens its leaves. That is not only invisible, it also closes it and puts it on the ground. And then at nighttime it opens it, and if you go by at nighttime, you see a film of water running to the center of that plant.
Wow.
Impressive. And so they drink water, condensed water, out of the atmosphere. There are many other plants. I will not now only tell you what I saw. All of marvelous plants in a desert, sub-desert. It was also one in Mozambique. I saw. This is about 5 years ago. It's a vine too. It grows on let's say it's a vine. It's an euphorbiaceae. It grows on rocks, on stones, and it creates as it grows, a cup. And this cup is full of water all over time. Summer and winter, says in dry season, rainy season, it's always full of water. And then there are insects, birds come drinking that water. And when a little bit older, first a vine is growing in it, and that vine makes a root to the stone, without, let's say, avoiding that water will leak. It makes a root to the stone, and then it splits the stone and goes underneath, let's say, in the stone, underneath the stone, and then it covers the stone also. That's to say, it grows more and more and covers the stone. And at the end, the rock is no more a rock, it's small pieces, and a tree begins to grow in it too. That's to say, it's a colonization, so it's always cooperation. For me, it's clear it's cooperation. And if we would look, let's say, as I said in the beginning, change glasses, and put away our beliefs, upon which nearly all our so-called knowledge is based upon. It's not knowledge. It's even in modern physics, it's based, most of it. It's based on beliefs, not on knowledge. And then we are artists to prove that it functions in this and that way. And when it doesn't fit, we put a constant in it. And this constant, you can a constant. If you put that in, I can put a constant. use a constant and prove that 1 fold 3 is 25. It's I need on the factor put in between, and then I can prove that it is 25. But in fact, it's not 25. But this is very many things in modern physics. It functions in this way. And this is then the result of all this. And then another thing, we are, instead of looking at nature and studying really nature, we are looking in our mirror and interpreting what we see in our mirror to what happens in nature, not what really happens in nature. Not, it's only interpretation.
So we're seeing what we expect to see or want to see rather than what's actually happening.
Yeah.
Very
Yeah. And then there's another let's say another phenomenon from a moment onward that you accept you're part of a macroorganism, and then you will see that each species, each individual of all species, of all generations, they appear equipped to realize its tasks, to fulfill their function, moved by inner pleasure. And this, we appeared for this too. And I'm sure you making your gardening, you sometimes, I'm sure you have your moments that you're working a lot, but this working a lot is not something which steals or needs a lot of energy. It might be that at the evening you're a little bit tired, but you sleep better then, and then it's more than compensation. And for your body also it was good. Let's say you do it moved by inner pleasure, and if you do it in your house garden, if you do it for yourself or together with friends, it's a big joy. It's a great joy we can have, and we should try to figure out our function. Let's say not once the function of the species and then the individual function for what I came equipped for, and then try to do that.
So how do we put that practically into our farming, Ernest? How do we do that? Like, what are you doing where you are, and what can we learn from that?
Once put away your belief, that's to say our be afraid, to be afraid of photosynthesis, and then ask each species, each plant, what do you contribute? What is the small thing you can do? If you do not agree that you have now that grass or that herb, you will find, or you try to find, as long as you don't find another one, treat it well. And then treat it well, I will say it how to do it. If you plant, for example, your vegetables and you don't have sufficient fertilizer, you plant it together with grass. It's the best way to do it. Radish, in any case, they will grow much better if you seed it together with grass. Grass in the density of grass, and the radish in the density of radish. And then they will grow together, and radish raises the grass. Let's say it helps to nurse that grass. And then if you still like to have lettuce, so mix together a little bit seeds of lettuce. You can do it organized in rows, grass together with radish. If you'd like to have rocket, so plant the small line on the rocket. You can plant those rows 7-10 centimeter one from the other. Let's say the distance between quite close together. And if you'd like to give a little bit of organic matter, plant it on the top of the furs, not of the furs, of the dwells, and then fill it in with organic matter, so you can use organic matter too. And then plant in spacing. You know that you could have lettuce, plant lettuce in between together also with the grass. You could plant it in order to facilitate those lettuce in rows where you have your radish, because then it's easy to where you have your rocket, then it is easy to manage. You cut the rocket and then you have your lettuce, and also in other rows of rockets you can plant your cabbage and so on. Okay, do that, and then you cut when the moment you harvest your radish, you use, or by the employment of a teaser, a beautiful teaser, you cut that grass and put it on the ground, not upon the grass, in order to cover the ground. 3 weeks later, you will return to do that, and you will see that if you do that, that grass will use a very well sharpened teaser in order to make sure that you don't ill-treat that grass. The topping of that grass, it will stimulate it to send exudates to that part of the microorganism of the mycorrhizum, which is able to produce growth hormones for it. And for not being an autist or an egoist, those and it's an exo mycorrhizum. So it's how it's called. It's divided for the whole plant community, and so you will give information of growth, and you will save water, at least 60 to 70% less water you will need. And it comes to the point that you need no more water at the moment that grass will grow, and you cut it every 3 weeks or 2 weeks according to the climate. You cut it clean and put it on the place, and then bring it also underneath the leaves of the leaves of your lettuce, and then you harvest the lettuce. The cabbage is over, and so you bring also deposit sufficient underneath it too, because the production will increase, and so you have a surplus of grass, which could make problem for the same grass, because grass, it has a co-evolution with our cattle with herbivorous, and they eat it and they transform it. And so if you cut it then and keep it underneath those plants, so you will your cabbage or your lettuce, it will help to create the conditions for some basidiomycetes, and then your plant will come to that. Let's say it will come to that and participates on some of the byproducts of the metabolism of that basidiomycetes, and will be allowed, or can participate too on the water that those basidiomycetes drink out of that. That's to say, condense out of the atmosphere. So it's all done to function, and so this is now translated to your garden. And if you now would go a step far, then plant trees together. Plant trees in great density, about 10-fold more, then you will 10 to 100-fold more, and if you have about 200-fold more, then you will need when adult those trees. And plant once you know that it will fit to the place. Be not afraid of trees. Even if you have a small garden, you can have trees. You are allowed to top it, to pollard it every year at the moment of planting. This pollarding has the same effect as the pollarding or the cutting of your grass. It's only much more stronger. And then you have the organic matter. That's to say, you will instead of need, as we believe that we need to bring organic matter to our garden, we will produce organic matter, and as a by-effect of doing an intelligent way of gardening, we will still improve soil conditions, and every year you have a richer soil. And the more you understand to do that, the more you will be enjoyed of the productivity. That's to say, think also of potatoes. They should do well on your place. Potatoes you can plant, you plant in springtime. And potatoes, they love to be in a half shade of a tree. And of a pruned tree, that's to say, prune those trees, it can be your apple trees, it can be whatever you want. And have just in a row of those apple trees, have still currants and gooseberries and other type of berries, and give the organic matter of pruning of those apple trees organized in a double row underneath this tree, so that you have a protection, or you have a seed bed for your tree of 1 to 2 meters. And just on the side, it depends on the size of your tree, and it will increase in the course of the time. That the tree will grow more, and also your black currants and red currants and gooseberry will be more. You can, and you still can plant some strawberries also on the border. And then every year in springtime, in any case, you had pruned your apple trees, and you have your liliaceas, like I don't know the English name for that, but there are many liliaceas which grow in wintertime, and also chives, wild chives, they grow in wintertime. And then at the moment of planting your potatoes, you cut them and put it upon the wood too, in order to help a little bit for that wood to be transformed with more facility. And so you deposit every 30 centimeter a potato underneath that organic matter. According to the variety, 3 months, 2 months, 4 months later, you will have, that's to say, you will leave that plant and you will see a full nest of potatoes, beautiful potatoes, without any necessity for control of fungi or any other pests or diseases.
Yeah. Ernest, how much land are you stewarding there?
Repeat your...
How much land are you stewarding? Like, how much are you farming or stewarding?
I planted in the beginning, when I bought this piece of land, I planted 350 hectares of forests and 111 hectares together with, let's say, forest together with cocoa. It was abandoned land, that is, depleted landscape and depleted vegetation. And the plan was, in fact, to cultivate cocoa in a bigger scale. I had a partner who lent me my money to plant it. And then 4 years after beginning, or that is, I had planted all those 350 hectares. And then the cocoa price crashed. That's to say, it went down to 10% what it was, for different reasons. I will not tell now the reasons all. And up to now at the moment, we have a very high cocoa price in relation. We had the last 30 years of it. Last 30 years, it's but it's only a third what we had before. That is it, that we had in the boom of the cocoa in Brazil in between 64 and 88. But it's a little bit better. And so I decided, when the price crashed, first my partner asked to leave of our partnership. And then he asked me to, let's say, he gave me 2 possibilities, two choices, or he will sell it and give me a small amount of money now to begin something new, or I should return money to him without interests during the 15 years. And in that case, we still had 11 years ahead. And so I decided to do that. And with cocoa, it was not possible, but I began to try banana. So I produced dehydrated bananas. And in 2.5 years, I had paid, I had sufficient money to give back. And then I decided to give the plantation, that is a great part I let to the forest, in a reserve. And the other ones, about half of it, I gave it to my former workers for free use. All of them. After 3-4 years, they gave it back. Let's say, saying that it doesn't produce nothing more. It's a bad soil. And so I decided to work. Let's say, concentrate myself on 7 hectares. In the meantime, it's more 5 hectares. It's the surrounding of my house where I have a huge, the whole plantation of all those 350 hectares. It's a treasure of different species. But in the surrounding of my house, there are some elements which are for me very precious. It's Brazil nuts, it's mangostan, it's whatever you want of tropical fruits. And so I have a problem to see them abandoned. And so I'm trying to maintain it. And it's my paradise, really. And it's at the same time, it's a place where the hunters, there are more hunters than animals. And there is no control. Let's say it's very difficult to get rid of them. It's impossible, in fact. So it's a place that the hunters respect more or less. And so there are still many of the animals of natural fauna on this place, a lot of birds, but also mammals and insects, a lot of insects. As I said to you, nearly every day I see a new species or a new genotype of the same species of insects. And this is a deep joy, that is to see how life, also in a smaller context, still thrives, is able to thrive and appearing and coming. And it seems that they know that to say, no, they're all species. They appear equipped to communicate between them. And so communication is something you understand all the other ones, and you can send messages to be understood by all other ones. It's not necessary that it is in English or in Portuguese or in German. They have their way of communication, and they, in any case, if you have children, you know that a child understands you from the first day onward, your messages and your communications. And if you have the privilege to interact with a child of a completely different language, it understands you immediately. And so all the plants have the same thing. They understand us, and it's not important the language you speak, it's your energy.
Wow, that's powerful. Ernst, there's a few questions that I want to get to. Before we just hop into those, what does biodiversity mean to you?
Biodiversity. Biodiversity is function. First of all, is function. Each species, all individuals of all species in all generations, they occur equipped to realize their tasks, to fulfill their functions, moved by inner pleasure. And this is one of the principles. And so if there is a task, a new task to be done, a new species will appear. If there, let's say it might come from far away, these are those ones we, in modern time, we have a quarrel with them. Let's say believe we have a quarrel with them. This is those invasive plants. There are no invasive plants. They proliferate because they found a niche to be useful and to do something useful. And if we would employ them, would be completely different. After having done their job, they retire themselves again. And so biodiversity is function. And biodiversity, and it's not only biodiversity. If you go, for example, to polar region, let's say to the taiga, in its extreme parts, there exists in a taiga, in the tundra. In the tundra, there exist only 4 types of lichens. So only vegetation which can grow there, it's permafrost. Only 4 species, but there are millions of genotypes. It's difficult to see the same genotype in great number. It's always, and also there are the reindeer. It has a very important functions. It before springtime, let's say in the fall of the winter, it goes to the it's winter time. It's living in the taiga. Then it moves to the tundra, and it scratches, removes the snow and eats the lichens which grew the year before. And then it passes its digestion, and then it goes to the water, and not to the way to the water. It also deposits parts of the feces in different places. It doesn't lose it. It has its criteria to do it, and the rest it brings to the water. The water then, those rivers are known for its great richness, treasure of fish. And so it's an abundance system. And then it goes back, that is, say, when the summer has come in the coldest part of the tundra, it very fast it goes back. And also it's giving birth to their children, or to the calves. Just at the moment they arrived in the tundra. Let's say it's a very rich place, and a lot of things to be done. And if we take off now that reindeer, the tundra, it transforms itself into a desert. And so it's clearly its function. And so all species, and this will help you a lot in your garden. If you look at each species, what is your function? What is your potential function? What can you do? And you can be sure it didn't come to do something bad. It comes to do something good. And okay, you can, for the moment, it makes no sense. You have now planted, and then plant your vegetables are growing. So at that moment, it makes no more sense to plant something else in between. No, you only manage those plants, cut them as long as they have not flowered. That is, say, longer living grasses. Longer living, might be 1 year, 2 years, 10 years, living grass and herbs. You cut at the moment 2 criteria. When it enters in conflict in terms of space, but do not think that they have allelopathy between them. No, they are doing well together. But then when they begin to cover, to overcrowd before they are doing it, your lettuce, your radish or whatever you have, cut them. Take a scissor and cut them. And then organic matter, thank you. that you have done a good job, and it will grow again. It gives much less work than pulling them out, because if you pull them out, you will have a dry soil afterwards, no more photosynthesis, it will become a poor soil. But if you cut it, it will grow again, and then you will enrich the soil. And the longer time that you said, more often you can do it, more you will have benefit on your place. And so this would be selective weeding. That's to say, it's not a weeding of pulling out, of exterminating, is to study the function, the niche it has in the system, and then treat them. And don't let herbs more than, even if you don't that to say, enter in the space for the moment or compete with the space of your vegetables, but don't let them more time than at the moment that they are flowering. They should not make sense, not make seeds, because then when they begin to make seeds, they induce their mycorrhizal to store, to take out of use the minerals, and also information to your vegetables. Stop growing, guys. I have to make my seeds here now, and so I need a different environment. And so you cut them at that moment. Yeah, it likes guy. I will top you a little bit, pollard you or top you. You can grow again. No problem. But at the moment, it's not yours. It's not your turn yet. That's to say, this information is not yet your turn. And I do this also with trees. I have a lot of natural regeneration in my plantation. A lot, because birds bring them, mammals bring them, and I do not pull them out. I only, every year, once or twice, according to the species, I cut it with my teaser or the machete, by the use of a machete or teaser. If it is a very tough one, it's a teaser, and I always do all in order to have a clean cut. Information, not you bad guy, you are stealing space here. No, please wait a little bit. It's not yet your turn. And then when your term is coming, let's say, might be that I will die or I will go away. It's very interesting. Those species, natural species of natural system, they will come up in 2 years. My cocoa plantation is a forest. Let's say, it transforms itself into a forest. And so this gives you another marvelous feeling of not being a bad element to the system. That's to say, you can go away happy.
Ernest, you invite us to see life in full color. I feel like it's a kaleidoscope of color and rainbow, the way you're describing working with plants and life and soil and ultimately energy. So I deeply thank you for that. There's a question here. I want to know what cultivating life means to you as well, but we're going to ask this question first. Is it preferable to prepare the soil 1 or 2 years before planting with fertilizer plants?
This question, I can give you an answer to this question. Look at the conditions of the soil, and if the conditions for the soil is not yet at the point for the cultivated plants you'd like to cultivate, that's to say, for our cultivated plants, you intend to plant, or you plan to plant, and so it will help you to plant, or it could be beneficial. Not only could be, it will be beneficial to plant them. In this case, look for the best growing species or thriving species on the place, and look for species which are favorable for the next crop, or for the first crop you'd like to plant. Let's say if it is, in our case, corn, for example. For corn, it's not very beneficial to plant clover or to plant clover or lucerne. You have, in this case, I should choose for another leguminous plant. It might be beans. Also, which could be one of those, and then fava beans too would be better than better than clover. And then grasses also for corn is not the best cover crop. You should use another one, but you also can decide, okay, I will plant leguminous plants, and in this case clover, and for you based in Canada it might be red clover, and if you have lack of water, and so lucerne, and different grasses, and treat them well. You can then do the following. You can organize that grass, if you have no cattle, even if you had cattle, organize it, cut it 3, 4, 5 times according to the crop you planted, your cover crop you planted. Organize it in rows, half a meter or meter wide, in a density, that's in a density which will oppress completely the grasses planted on that place. And so earthworms will begin to thrive on that place, which will be marvelous. You can also do then the following. If you cut it the first time in let's say in end of May, so you can plant some winter crops on that grass 3, 4, 5 weeks later in the center, and then cut once again the grass nearby and make a double row and have your winter crop. It might be turnips, it might be winter radish, whatever you have on that place, and you will have marvelous crop. This from the first year onwards, only with that cover crop. As I say, it's a cover crop. In fact, it is the same thing, or it's the same logic behind. As I said to you, it's only much more concentrated, and on so-called poorer situations, you can harvest from the first year onward. Life is beautiful.
It is beautiful. Thank you for that. Oh, Ernst, what type of grass would you recommend to plant in Europe, south of France?
South of France. You're living south of France?
Yeah, Caroline said she's living south of France. So Caroline.
Okay, how much precipitation they have?
Caroline, if you are still here, let us know how much precipitation you have, and Ernst can give you an answer to that. And then also, Ernest, how many hectares of coffee-focused syntropic forest can a single person manage alone? I think that.
Well, I'll give you first an answer to the first question. What to plant in southern France? Southern France is Mediterranean, and Mediterranean climate is, for me, the best climate for human beings, without any doubt. It's the best climate. It gives all over the year. You have something to eat. In fact, the agricultural year in Mediterranean climate, it begins in October with the first autumn rains. Then you should have planted the winter weeds or vegetables, and if you don't plant, they come up by themselves. But if you plant some more, how it's called, more vigorous species, you do a good job. And so plant those ones. It can be according to the place. If it's a very poor place, exploited and poor now, then you use yellow lupins, and then a little bit better white lupins. A little bit better, you can plant fava beans. And in terms of grasses, grasses, it's complicated. You can plant wild wheat. It's a less, not cultivated wheat, wild wheat and wild oats. They are not demanding. You plant them together with those leguminous. And then you can, so you have a soil cover. That soil cover you can treat, as I say, in the same way as I said to you. You can cut them. You can also plant in lines, and you can, if the situation is a little bit better, you plant wheat, old varieties of wheat, or less demanding would be how it's called, the grey bread, wheat, not wheat, cereal. It's I don't have a name now. You can plant that one, and together with those lupines, and then you can use sheep before Christmas. Let's say you plant it on a dry land, let's say in dry seasons still, in beginning September or mid-September, the rain will come, and then it will grow. A little bit rain is sufficient, it will grow. And then it will come to, let's say, 0.5 meter, and you'll send or met your sheep to eat, to browse that vegetation only during few hours. Let's say subdivide the block so that they give them the possibility only few hours to eat, only in order to eat the top, let's say the whole vegetation. The leguminous plants, they will not return. If you plant a little bit veg together, it's better. Then veg, it will return. And then in May, you have your wheat ripening. Let's say you can harvest. And if you would plant at the same time still a summer crop, you can, let's say a summer crop, lucerne. She will, let's say, together with those wheat, she will plant lucerne, and she will plant broadcast also Festuca pratensis. Festus, I suppose it's English, it's festus. It's a drought-resistant grass of a Mediterranean climate. She will plant those festus, so that when she cuts in summertime, in June, it's in May, the wheat, it's ripe, so she can make bread out of it. And it's a marvelous way to improve soil. And then she has use an old long straw material, and so you have a lot of organic matter. And this you can cultivate in between, or in a rows, in the stripes, in between the rows of the fruit trees. Mediterranean is a place of apricots, is a place of you can plant also oranges. There's lime trees. You can whatever, fig trees. Don't forget olive trees. All these trees you plant them and plant them together. And then she should study the best ancient literature which exists. It's very poetic, written. It's Plinius the Elder, written about 2,000 years ago. He lived in North Africa, and he's describing very beautifully that the olive trees grows in the shade of the poplar trees, and the fig tree in the shade of the olive tree, and the peach tree in the shade of a fig tree, and the grapes growing on the fig trees. And so we could do that, and then we would have another, and then the herbs and the cereals, they are growing. All this is Plinius the Elder. Latin, written in a beautiful Latin language. Yeah, the cereals and the vegetables, they grow in the shade of the how it's called, of the peach tree. And the peach tree and the fig tree, they lose their leaves in autumn time, when you have to plant your your cereals and your vegetables. And so you don't need any irrigation, nothing, and you will harvest all over the year. Once again, beautiful is our planet, all one paradise.
Absolutely beautiful. There's just one. Do you need to go, Ernest? Because we're at the top of 90 minutes. There's like another question. So if you need to, I want to honor that.
The other question was, I don't remember. Say it once again.
So what I just want to invite everybody to put their biggest takeaways in the chat. Let us know what your biggest takeaway from this session is. And I'm going to ask Ernest this question. It's about it's another question from Raphael, and he is that person is asking, they'd like to know, is it possible to produce coffee in a region where it can be generated? They're talking about Brazil, southern Minas Gerais, coffee region.
By incidence, next week I will give a workshop on the farm which won twice now the prize for the best coffee. And we will plant coffee and in this case I will teach them, let's say show them to plant coffee if small scale, and we did it also in Ribeirão Preto. It functions very well. For each coffee tree planted in high density, let's say 2.5 for 1 meter, each tree, the coffee tree receives its mother tree, and then later on, and then in between, still every 20-25 meters, an emergent tree, which is not to be topped, and then the mother tree is being topped every year at the moment of the coffee harvest, or if it is the coffee, let's say if the coffee harvest is quite late, let's say May, June, you can make that topping in that region in February, March, and plant bananas together and cut them, all of them, fell all of them at the beginning of the coffee harvest, and so you will induce new growth for the whole system by that topping, and at the same time you will have, let's say, you will stimulate to flower all together. You can plant also citrus tree together, let's say still integrate citrus tree, and one of the best companion of coffee would be mango trees. You can top them every year, then you don't harvest fruits, but you can also let a certain number treat as fruit trees and prune it every year. Indispensable if you'd like to have a big harvest of mangoes, and if you'd like to have a good harvest of coffee.
That's a wonderful, wonderful information. I know Camosine also does a lot of like they're in Brazil, and they're in the middle of Brazil, not the southern Brazil, but that might also be a resource for you to check into. Is Camosine, CAMCIN. They have a biodynamic coffee farm. Might be helpful for you to touch in with them as well. And Ernest, what does cultivating life mean to you?
What is cultivating?
Cultivating life. What does cultivating life mean to you?
Cultivating life, this for me is joy. It's fulfilling my function. Look, I'm a philosopher, I'm farmer, both. and I love mechanics. These all are part of what human being could be. The most stupid thing we can do is make war. Yeah, but we appeared equipped for, and I'm sure that modern man or man turned 200,000 years ago, and now during 200,000 years we are the dominant species of animals. And I'm sure that we didn't appear to what we are doing now, destroying life, exterminating life, making war, and dreaming to go to trying to go to the Mars. This is not our function. Our function, we appeared also in the context of life equipped as we are with the capacity of abstract thinking and the capacity to construct sophisticated tools and to use them. These are features of human capacities, as I say, and then his function is to create, or should be, to create situations for positive effects. If you plant 2, 3, 4, 5 of combination of different species, and then you interact in a system in order to increase life. That is, say, to potentialize life, so that it's no more 1 + 1 + 1 species. No, it's 1 + 1. It do the same job as 3, 4, 5 would do. And if you have 10, 50, 100 or 200 species could do. We are all able to do that. I gave you a small impression of what I said to you, what had been done in Americas by indigenous people to plant corn and beans together. But it was not only corn and bean, it was still squash together. And that squash is free. You can also plant potatoes together, and that is free. That is, it's producing in between. That is, together with corn. I did it in Switzerland, together with corn and beans. Corn, in that case, I planted corn 100% as they planted that variety. I used 70,000 individuals per hectare, or 7 per meter square, and then three climbing beans for each corn, and then still planted potatoes in between. The potatoes you plant a little bit earlier. Let's say corn and beans, they have problem with frost, which we have in that place where I grew up until mid-May, and so you can't plant beans at that. Corn you can plant because it takes a certain time to grow, and so it's no problem. But also you have to wait for end April, beginning May to plant corn. But potatoes you can plant a little bit earlier. And so the potatoes, if you use a 2-month potato, they prepare the place marvelously with by the means or by their mycorrhizal. You get the marvelous soil, and then corn will grow better and beans will grow better. And so this is, for me, this is our function. And then, as I said to you, I'm a philosopher. This is also, it's typical for, it's typical for man. He has a possibility to ponder about, to think about, and so use your capacity, and then to construct tools. And so constructing machines. This is something fantastic, to say. To see, not machines to kill something, no, to make it better. For example, I say to people that here in Brazil you pay an extra taxes from chainsaw, and they blame chainsaw to be blame it for the destruction of forest. But I say to them, well, chainsaw doesn't go by itself to the forest, sucks the forest. But if I work in my agroforest, and the chainsaw, a small chainsaw, it's a marvelous tool we can use, and also we have nowadays also said electric clippers and whatever you want. That's some tools which facilitate our works. We also could send to plant all our how it's called, consortia of plant that I explained you in terms of planting different vegetables together. You could imagine to have to construct a robot who will put it at that place, and then to harvest you can send also a small robot. It would have less weight than we to step in the garden. And so not that I'm believing that we don't need go in the garden, it's very, very important, but there are certain moments where a robot could do a good job, also helping to me to prune or pollet some trees. A machine can help me. It's faster and it's more elegant. This is another thing. If I use a chainsaw, well sharpened, I can cut the branch, a huge branch of a tree, and then it goes straight downwards to the soil, and then it is more or less, well, I say joking, it's planted in the soil, and it doesn't destruct anything on that place. Only if by incidents falls upon, let's say, goes exactly on how it's called, on a thicker branch of a cocoa tree, it can break it. But this happens once or twice a year. Of all the thousands of big trees I prune every year.
Well, thank you, Ernest. There's one other question that I was really curious about. It was your thoughts about the cosmic versus nature, or nature versus cosmic, or are they the same, or what is if you could summarize a reflection on those, what would you say?
Well, for me, the whole universe is one in-breath, out-breath system. And each place, each object in this universe has its function. It appears equipped to realize its function. And so it's also our planet. Life on our planet, it didn't come by incidents. It has been created by our planet in order to realize its way, that's to say, its function, its way of being, its function in the universe. And then if you look at the solar system is something like an atom. And it functions also like not in the way we learned at school, but it functions in the same way. And it's always the same, let's say, it repeats itself from tiny, the small things, from micro to the macro. It's always repeating, let's say, it's one in-breath, out-breath system. And what we believe as dead, it's not dead. It's an in-breath, out-breath system. If I look at an atom is composed of the neutrons, protons, and the electrons. And the electrons, they every second, thousands of times, they emit light. And so for me, it's there is no logic. There it is dead. And that is only functioning one way. It's in fact it's in-breath, out-breath. That's to say, it's entropy at the moment that it emits light, and it's syntropic at the moment that it's dark. That's to say, it's complexifying energy again. And this all, it's the whole universe, it's the same thing. And now we know it now as for results brought by the Hubble telescope in the United States. They came to the conclusion that it was not as Einstein believed, that the far away, the older. No, the whole universe is all organized. It's all organized. There are new galaxies, there are old galaxies, and there are ones which make a fusion, other ones which split. And so it's a living system. That and so if you look at this, we have our place on Earth, and if we would find the function foreseen for us, or for what we appeared for, we would be happy, and we would have more life, no need for war, and we would have time for other things, as I said, for philosophy, for music, not for infernal noise, as we love to make. Now, for real music, if I think of what many civilizations achieved to do, for me, the closest one is European, but Bach, in the frequency he played, you can use that music to make grow, that is, to stimulate the growth of plants, and also to stimulate our well-being. And he created that music for that person, for that purpose. And also the old Indian music, it has similar effects. As I say, it's we could do that instead of making infernal noise. Well, I saying infernal noise, it was Bach who said a music which is not sacred can only be an infernal noise.